Hey guys, HDvee here. Now, we all know that Pokemon vary in many shapes and sizes, but when you look closely at a Pokemon, they are sometimes shorter or larger than you expect. For example, I'm actually surprised that Excadrill is 2 foot 4 inches tall. That's the same height as Buizel, but shorter than Dewott. I kinda thought he was around the 3 foot mark. With that being said, today's video takes a look at Pokemon heights that make absolutely no sense. Don't hesitate to drop a comment down below about the video and if you found it interesting or not. Don't forget to leave a like on this video too to show your support, and I'll be sure to bring out a new video very shortly. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already to keep up to date, and follow my Twitter to hear updates about the channel. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video, and I really hope that you enjoy. Before we begin, let me just say that this list is in no way in any particular order. It's just reading off a bunch of Pokemon heights that literally make no sense to me, or probably you once you've watched the video. With that out of the way though, please enjoy the video and prepare to have your minds blown. First off, we have Sloking. Now personally, I'd think that Sloking is roughly around 4 feet tall, seeing as in the second Pokemon movie, Sloking was seen standing next to Ash multiple times throughout the film, and Ash is around 4 to 5 foot tall, seeing as he's only 10 years old. However, Sloking is actually 6 feet 7 inches tall, which is crazy. Did everyone have a huge growth spurt for this movie? Or was this Sloking just naturally around 2 foot smaller than the average Pokemon in his species? Needless to say, that's definitely something that doesn't add up here. Next up, we have Roselia. Now, what would you say this Pokemon's height was? Maybe around 3 foot, give or take? Well, that's wrong. Really wrong. Roselia is actually only 1 foot tall. Yeah, you heard that right. It's only 1 foot tall. What's even more weirder though is that Budew, Roselia's pre-evolution, is only 8 inches tall. So this Pokemon only grows 2 inches tall through its evolution, even though Roselia looks huge compared to Budew. Another case of Pokemon just simply not making sense if you ask me. Coming up next, we have Dunsparce. Now to me, this Pokemon looks like a small little creature that digs holes, and kind of just lays there. At least I wouldn't picture it being too big. Turns out, Dunsparce is actually 4 feet 11 inches tall. That's like the same size as a 12 or 13-year-old boy. Definitely surprising, and it actually makes this Pokemon sound quite scary. Imagine seeing one of these huge things in the wild trying to attack you. Finding out this has almost certainly changed my feelings towards Dunsparce. Up next, we have Hydragon. Now, Hydragon is pretty normal in height, coming in at 5 foot 11 inches, which is of course the average height of a male human. But to be honest, for a pseudo-legendary you'd expect this Pokemon to be much bigger. Especially because in the anime, Hydragon is seen carrying 2 people at once. To me, it just seems like this Pokemon should be a tiny bit bigger. Next up, we have Furret. When I think of Furret, I think about a small, cuddly little Pokemon that's soft and playful. What I don't think about is this Pokemon being a huge 5 foot 11 inches. Like previously mentioned, that's the average height of a human male. So that cuddly image of this Pokemon immediately turns into fear, as the thought of a huge Pokemon like that coming at me isn't something I want to be getting myself into. Coming in next, we have Joltrik. Now, Joltrik is of course based on a spider, and spiders are small, so this Pokemon being only 4 inches tall obviously makes sense. What doesn't make sense is how much this Pokemon grows when it evolves into Galvantula. Coming in at 2 foot 7 inches tall, Galvantula gets the growth spurt of the century. I just feel like Joltrik should have been made a little bit bigger to make this evolution seem a little more realistic. Next up for today's video we have DaHubbz. Before we begin, DaHubbz is based on an anchor, and anchors are of course quite big. However, this Pokemon takes it a little bit too far. DaHubbz comes in at a whopping 12 foot 10 inches tall, which is incredible to think about. That's nearly the same height as two professional basketball players standing on each other's shoulders. You'll just be hurting your neck looking up at this Pokemon all the time. Coming up next we have Trampa. Trampa of course has quite a funny design, seeing as it looks a bit clueless. However, this Pokemon more than makes up with that with its height. Trampa comes in measuring at 9 foot 10 inches tall, which is the same height as the legendary Pokemon Xerneas. This Pokemon being as big as a legendary Pokemon just doesn't seem right to me. Next up we have Haunter. Now personally, I've always thought that Haunter was quite small, seeing as in the anime it was around half the size of Ash, seeing as it was floating. In actual fact, its height is actually 5 foot 3 inches tall, which means this Pokemon is actually bigger than Ash. If you thought that was bad, when Haunter evolves into Gengar, it actually gets smaller, seeing as Gengar is only 4 foot 11 inches tall. This whole evolution line just doesn't make sense to me. Coming in next we have Salamence. Being a pseudo legendary and a dragon, you'd think that this Pokemon would be huge. Well, you'd be wrong. Salamence's actual height is only 4 feet 11 inches tall, so not the most terrifying dragon to come across in the Pokemon world. Next up we have Walrus. Now as we all know, Walrus is based on a walrus, and the average height of a walrus is around 7 foot tall to a whopping 10 foot tall. Well, Walrus clearly missed out on the growth spurt, because this Pokemon only comes in measuring in at a measly 4 feet 7 inches tall. Not exactly the same now, is it? Coming in at the next spot we have Nidoking. Now at a first glance, Nidoking looks like a huge, powerful creature, capable of destroying anything in its path, when in actual fact it is only 4 feet 7 inches tall. That's the same height as Doduo. Doesn't look as scary now, does it? Next up we have Stoutland. Similar to Nidoking, when you first see Stoutland, you see a huge creature capable of destructive power, when really this dog-like Pokemon is a puppy compared to most Pokemon. At only 3 foot and 11 inches tall, Stoutland shares the same height as Smeargle. Smeargle. Finishing today's video off though is Lucario. Lucario is obviously based on a wolf that stands up like a human, so you'd expect it to be at least in the 5 foot tall region. Nope, of course not. Lucario actually only measures up to 4 foot 3 inches tall, the same height as, get this, a Ghastly. That's as much as I can take from this. But with that wraps up this video. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it. If you did enjoy the video though, please leave a like, I'd really appreciate it. Like I said at the start of the video, I would also love to hear your guys' opinions too on this subject, so be sure to leave them in the comment section below. I have a couple top 5s coming onto your screen in a second, so be sure to give them a watch if you have the time, and also subscribe if you like my content. That's everything from me though, so thanks for watching guys, have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video.